My name is Lelañea Fulton, and I am a Unity Consciousness experiencer. I use Oneness, or the teachings or insights of Unity Consciousness that I have received, to support my clients in my coaching practice, supporting those who have had Unity Consciousness experiences, who are attracted to the concept or the teachings of Unity Consciousness, or are wanting to receive information pertaining to Unity Consciousness. My NDE took place around the age of 6 or 7 in an area called Coolville, Ohio. And there is a beautiful small lake that has been buoyed off and is enclosed so that the residents can swim. It's man-made, there's a lifeguard and a small parking area. And it's just this really beautiful family-oriented area where everyone knows everyone and faces are very familiar, and it's a very country setting. People wanting to lay their blankets out on this beautiful little hillside to picnic or just watch their kids or loved ones playing and swimming in the buoyed section. On this particular day, I felt rather courageous. There was another girl about my age, about my height, and she was jumping off of the deeper end of the dock, which rather than jumping towards the shore, you were jumping away from the shore. And I saw her do this a number of times, and I felt compelled. I thought to myself, well, we're the same height. If she can do it, I can do it. However, I didn't take into account that she knew how to swim, and the maximum experience I had really pertaining to swimming was doggy paddling and maybe a little floating on my back. So on the platform, I see her jump off and she swims back to the shore, and I decide to do it too. And this was my introduction to death. So after diving in, what I didn't take account of was that on this particular side of the dock, the water was higher, which means that my normal protocol, which was floating down to the bottom and pushing myself back up and then doggy paddling to the shore, could not take effect. And the water was much deeper. And I let myself sink down to the bottom, but didn't have enough breath in me to support pushing myself back up. And as I pushed myself back up, I was grasping for air and also became scared, so I began attempting to scream simultaneously. So as I'm pushing myself up and screaming and trying to take in breath, I do this about 3 times before I recognize that it's not a good strategy and that I need to do one or the other. So at some certain point, I push myself up and grab air. And I go back down and I push myself up and grab air. And so the cycle continues before I get to the point of exhaustion and recognizing that this strategy isn't going to get me the attention that I'm trying to get, for somebody to realize that I'm in over my head, literally. There's children playing everywhere. No one can see me. My mother can't see me. No one knows what I'm going through, that I'm literally drowning. By this point, I began to spend more time at the bottom of this lake. And I'm spending more time with my feet in the sand, and I'm trying to push myself towards the shore, and I'm feeling the resistance of the water and the resistance of the sand. My little toes are pushing and trying to grab as much as it can to propel myself forward. And it's just, I'm at a loss. I'm unable to really move. And it's almost as though I'm being pulled into the corners, the shadows of the lake. And fear is is taking place, and I'm recognizing that I don't have enough air. I'm recognizing at this point that I'm drowning, and that the strategies that I've been attempting are failing me. They're not working. And time starts to slow down, almost collapse on itself. And I began to surrender to the concept of dying, of death. Things become very still for me, and I start to see the fragments of sand being washed up from the floor of the lake and it coming upward. And as the sun is breaking into the crest of the water, I can see the fragments of sand illuminate within the water. And it was like a beautiful snow globe, but of sand and sunlight and all these reflections and all of these shimmers of amber and gold. And I remember the calmness that came over me, and I surrendered to the concept of dying and being okay with it. And I was letting the universe know that I wasn't scared. As I began to release and let go of the fight, of striving, as I surrender and just lean into this process of dying, I entered into a new state. This is when I became so in the moment. I was so in the moment that my focus moved away from trying to be seen and trying to be rescued, that I became captivated with the beauty that was around me. I got to just be in this space alone by myself where no one could see me, below the lake, just observing how incredibly beautiful nature was, how incredibly beautiful this moment was, how incredibly beautiful dying was. And there was no fear. It was love. I was filled with love and appreciation for the amount of time that I did get to spend on this planet. And there wasn't regrets. I didn't have regrets. I was just so enamored by the beauty of everything that was around me. So as I'm sitting in this state of bliss and of love and of gratitude and of appreciation while my body is dying, I began to recognize that I am the fragments of sand. I am the sun that's breaking the crest of the water. I am the shadows and the cold water that has been pulling me backwards. I am the energy that's moving around me. All of this that surrounds me and encompasses me, I am. And I began to be filled with oneness and love and gratitude and appreciation, and recognizing that I wasn't separate from any of this. And no matter how recessed into the shadows, into the cold, murky waters I was, and being an observer, regardless of the distance from the experience, that I was the experience. However, I was still able to feel my mother. I could feel my mother's presence sitting on the blanket. And I could even see my mother. Even though I was below the water, I could see and feel my mom's panic. I could see her stand up and is scanning the water, and she's unable to see me. And I hear her yelling my name, not audibly, but I hear her yelling for me. And I can even feel the panic because she can't see me. She's yelling my name. She's not getting a response. And I'm feeling her panic. And I'm able to see her above the water, even though I'm clearly submerged. I'm below water, but I'm flipping between these two perspectives. I began to recognize I can't do anything to calm my mom. I can't respond to her. And yet I'm still in this moment of beauty and awe. I'm still in this place where I'm not consumed with fear, and I'm okay with dying. I'm not scared of it. And it's at this point that I hear a voice, not audibly, but telepathically. And the voice has no gender. It is a voice that asks me, what would you like to do? And my response is, and there's a feeling, and there's this moment of recognizing I have a choice. And there is a part of me that is very okay with transitioning out. There's a part of me that is even wanting to transition out. But when I hear the voice ask, what would you like to do? I recognize and I respond telepathically, feeling my mom's energy, that she wouldn't understand and that it would kill her. It would destroy her if she lost her child. And that was my energetic response. It is in this moment that I began to see the body of an adult moving towards me. And I see a beautiful white bathing suit. And the bathing suit is old, similar to like the Marilyn Monroe era. And I see the body swaying towards me, and she has a beautiful long braid that hung down her back, and I could see the ends of the braid moving and swaying as she was moving towards me. And my POV is still bouncing between being above the water, below the water, feeling the frantic energy of my mother, but also feeling very calm and in a state of love and beauty and awe at what surrounds me. And it's this chaos of emotions and energy and activity, and within my bubble is just a place of calm. But yet I know all of this is happening around me. And as the body approaches me, I'm picked up and pulled out of the water. And my POV is still above, as if I can see myself lifted into this woman's arms. And simultaneously, I can see my mother catching sight of me being lifted out of the water and into her arms. And that's when my first breath comes. And the breath is painful. It is like bricks just dropping onto my chest. It's painful, it's dense, it's heavy. And in this moment, I felt myself, my perspective shot back into my body. And I'm fully in it now. And I'm trying to breathe. And I'm expelling water. And I can feel the woman's body who's holding me against her chest. I feel her, but I can't see her. I can't see her face even when I'm from another perspective, looking down at myself and looking at my mother. I should be able to see her face, but I can't see her face. And I can remember the ends of her hair. I can remember her braid. I can remember her bathing suit. But I can't remember her face because I can never see her face. And my mother comes running, and she's running so fast that it's almost as though she's running on water. And I see that before I go back into my body. And so now I'm fully in my body, and I feel my mother pick my body up out of this woman's arms and rush me back to the shore. And she puts me on the blanket, and I'm expelling water, and I'm coming back to my senses. And I'm also, that feeling of love and bliss and joy that I was surrendering to, and that I was just totally encapsulated in, is now fear. It's density, it's fear, it's cold, it's shaking, it's panic, it's crying because of all the fear. And I am just in the density of this. So I'm on the blanket for about 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes as I am recovering and expelling all the water and calming down. And, what's remarkable is that the blanket, my mom always put our blanket down next to the lifeguard. And there was a lifeguard on an elevated lifeguard stand, watching over the whole lake. And my mother goes to the lifeguard, who she says was counting his tips, because that's back when you would tip the lifeguard. And the lifeguard didn't see anything. He didn't witness anything. He didn't see anything. And, my mom clearly had some words with him. And, at this point, we're all ready to go. There's a little too much action for us on this particular day. And we decide that we're going to pack up and go home. And my mom wants to find the woman to thank her. And, it's been 15, 20 minutes and no one's approached the blanket. No one has come up and been like, is your daughter okay? We saw the whole thing. Or, what a scary situation that was. No one approached us. No family member of the woman who pulled me out of the water. Not the woman, not an observer, nobody. And the lifeguard didn't even witness this. And so my mother begins to approach the different groups of families and their blankets. And as she asked the different families, they didn't even see this event take place. They didn't recognize that there was a little girl drowning, a little girl pulled out of the water. My mom came back to me. My mom came back to me at the blanket and said, do you remember what this woman looked like? And I don't remember her face, but I remember, and I recounted the bathing suit and the long hair and the braid. And my mom began to ask people, have you seen the woman in this style of bathing suit, white with a long braid? No one had seen her. No one had seen this woman at all. This woman didn't come with anybody. And then my mom's like, well, has anyone left? And no one had seen anyone leave. It was such a bizarre scenario. No one had any information of this woman who just saved my life and pulled me out of the water. And, at a very busy lake that clearly had a lot of eyes. And so she couldn't be found. We never did find her. So after this drowning event, my mother would tell relatives or friends, about the event that had transpired. And she would often say, it's the damnedest thing, but we could never find the woman. And numerous times after the experience, my mom would ask me, so do you remember the woman at all? And I would always repeat the same information. Is all I remembered was how she felt, her energy. I remember what it felt like to be pressed against her chest, and I remembered her bathing suit and her beautiful long hair that was in a braid flowing in the water, swaying in the water. And it got to a point, it became a little bit of a joke where my mom would say, Lelañea has a guardian angel, like somebody just came out of the blue and rescued her. And it was more of a playful jest. And until I was about 20. And I was living in Germany, and I was driving on the Autobahn, and I was not wearing a seatbelt. And we were going, I was going about 90 miles an hour, and collided with another car that was merging over. And we collided and went over the bank of the Autobahn, where we hit a slew of trees head on. This other car had thrown the people who had seatbelts, somehow were thrown out of the car. Their car went up a tree, tires came off of the car, and there was bodies all over the highway, and they were bleeding. And I hit four trees head on, and the trees had just broken and fallen over my car. And The airbag kept me from going out the front window, and the back window completely burst out, and the car was running, and I just climbed out of the back seat of the car and went up to the top of the hillside and sat down. I had no broken bones. There was no blood. I literally had a bruise on the side of my nose where the airbag had popped. That's all I had. 90 miles an hour on the Autobahn, hitting trees head on with no seatbelt, and all I had was a bruise. And it was everyone who knew me and everyone I had met who had heard about the experience. Their response was, you must have a guardian angel. Like, by rights, you should be dead. That should have killed you. And for me, it was more of a knowing that there was something that I was supposed to do. There's a reason that I'm here. And that is why in these events, I'm still here. There's a reason that I'm supposed to be here. And throughout my life, there's these numerous issues that happen and these numerous events where I walk away from it going, damn, I should be dead. That should have taken me out. That one should have taken me out. So when I spend time with the energy of this person who pulled me out of the water and unable to see her face and only knowing how she felt and little hints such as her garment and her hair. People have asked me, is this a guardian angel or do you feel like this is a guide? And there's this intuitive knowing, there's this part of me that keeps wanting to say, and I find myself at times suppressing it. But what feels the most true and the most honest when I really sit with the energy and the experience of this individual or this person is that she feels like me. She feels like my future self, as if, my 55, 60-year-old self came back to pull her out of the water. She feels like me and is very similar, aspects and characteristics are very similar in terms of her taste and, what she was attracted to in terms of like what she wore and just the energy. And there is just such a profound feeling of feeling like I know her and feeling like I know her because she is me. So the most prominent aspect of my NDE was the oneness or the account of unity consciousness. And this manifestation or this allowing or knowing or experience is something that I would find to make itself known throughout my life on numerous different occasions. At this point, I'm about 27 years old and I'm living in New York City. And I have a book which is called The Celestine Prophecy. And I've had this book since I was 16, but for some reason, never found time to read it. And after reading it, I just became enamored, absolutely consumed by this book. And there was a point where I was probably, I think it's the 5th or 6th book into the Celestine Prophecy, that I was on the experiential guide. And I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and there's the L train that takes you from Brooklyn to Manhattan. And this particular train ride is a very bumpy ride. And it is a ride that, the most skilled of New Yorkers will ride standing up and, not hold on to any bars or sit down. And, there's almost like a degree of pride or enthusiasm that, one can take the L train through the tunnel and not be jolted or disrupted. And I was reading the experiential guide at this point and of the ride, and I'm holding my place with my finger as the cart is jumping and moving all over the place. And, we're probably about 3/4 of the way into the tunnel. And I had taken in something that felt very profound, and I needed to give it contemplation. And as I was holding this insight or this teaching from the experiential guide, I remember feeling it throughout my body. And my eyes are still looking down at the book. And I raised my eyes up to glance, to just give my eyes a rest from reading and take in what was happening around the room, when something magnificent came over me. I recognized the emotions. I recognized the feeling of joy, love, bliss, of being so enamored with the moment, being so present in the moment, that everything was illuminated, everything was highlighted. And this experience was the one that I experienced in the NDE, and it's making itself present again. And as I lift up and I'm looking around the subway car and I'm scanning the faces of everyone in the car, the light in the subway was so bright and illuminated, and the faces were illuminated, and the light was reflecting off of the metal inside of the subway car, and everything just felt like brilliant, absolute brilliance. And as I was making my way from face to face within the subway car, the faces no longer took on the very normal characteristics of what I tend to, at that point, would tend to find in New York City, which were more scours and less eye contact. Instead, I was finding direct eye contact from the individuals. I was finding smiles. And as I was navigating and moving from face to face, I was so consumed with this feeling of excitement and curiosity, and so moved that I was in my body, but it felt like as though I weren't. And I recognized in this moment that we were all connected, that everyone in that room was a fragment of one another. And as quickly as it came is as quickly as it left. And this is the first time that I had this experience outside of the drowning. And even though I recognized it, for me it didn't make sense because I wasn't in a state of dying. So why would this happen? Maybe this was a fluke scenario. Maybe it was the book. And it was something that I moved away from. I recognized and participated and was excited about the joy and the love and the feeling of abundance and connection. But it wasn't something that I reveled in for too long. So over time, these experiences of oneness became more intensified. And with one of the most intense representations of this experience being on the Vancouver, US border in 2023. And I was in Vancouver, British Columbia, exploring and visiting, and on my way back into the US to go to Portland, Oregon, I was crossing the border. And it was a very lengthy crossing over. There were cars upon cars, maybe even about a mile of traffic backed up. And it was an absolutely beautiful, gorgeous day, So there wasn't really an issue and there wasn't really a hurry. So I decided to just go along with it. And as I'm sitting in traffic, I decided to pull out a book that I was reading at the time, which is Richard Rudd's Gene Keys. And I have the book open on the steering wheel, and as the traffic inches forward every few minutes, I'm able to just leave the book on the steering wheel and just inch a little bit more forward, read a couple paragraphs, inch a little bit more forward. And so in this, beautiful dance of making my way to the border, the windows are down, my dog's in the back seat, and I hear a car with really intense heavy metal music, the kind that's angry and sounds like they're yelling and that they've been possessed. And I remember feeling bothered by it. I remember feeling agitated and annoyed. And, I had my environment, I had my flow, and I was reading, and, I felt like it had been interrupted. And there was a sense of arrogance and judgment that came over me. And as we're probably about 4 lanes, and the car next to me is inching up, and the music's getting louder, and I realize it's coming from this car. And I look over into the car, and I see 4 people, 4, young individuals that look like they were about 25, 26, and they're all very subdued. Their energy is very mellow, despite the very aggressive and very intense music that's coming from the car. And I find myself annoyed and rolling up my window, and I'm judging them, but I'm also focusing on them and analyzing them a little bit and taking them in. And as I'm staring at them, I hear a voice telepathically. And again, this voice, similar to my NDE, had no gender. And the voice said, "Lelañea, don't judge them. They are you. They are your brothers and sisters." And I held my gaze, observing these individuals. And the more I studied them, the more I thought to myself, they look like really nice people. They look really kind. Like these people, you guys could even probably be friends. Like, I could see myself grabbing a drink with them. They look like they would be really nice people to interact with. And as I'm observing them, I recognize that there's a shift that comes over me. And in the distance behind them, I see 2 young kids that look like they were about 8 or 9 years old, and they are throwing a football back and forth. And there's a shift that comes over me, and now I'm so compelled by these kids. And not only am I compelled, I'm starting to feel the excitement of what it feels like to throw the ball back and forth. And not only do I feel the excitement, I'm remembering all the times that I played football and threw the ball back and forth at that age. And, I'm watching these 2 boys play in the distance because it's a park, and I'm completely surrounded by people who are walking and navigating and moving in and out and having picnics. And these little boys were a part of a picnic. And I'm watching them run back and forth, and I'm watching their facial expressions. And I'm also noticing that they're moving a little bit slower. The way that they're moving is as if time has stopped. And they're throwing this ball back and forth with the most beautiful smiles I've ever seen on an individual's face. They are ecstatic. They are in bliss. They're in flow. And they're just radiating love. And they're throwing this ball back and forth, and the breeze is running through their hair, and the breeze is moving through the trees. And I am so consumed by this moment and so elevated and moved that for a moment I started to observe myself and wonder, did I eat something? Did I somehow get a hold of a gummy or something? Did I accidentally get dosed? What is happening to me in this moment? And in this, I'm able to be an observer of self and observing myself having this mystical moment of observing these two children. And I become captivated by this experience, and I start to move my attention to the right as I'm observing others in their party. And I'm observing the adults who are picnicking and grilling out with these kids. And as I'm moving and shifting from person to person, I'm feeling their emotions. I'm feeling their story, their narrative. I'm feeling connected to them as if I know them. And I'm recognizing that these emotions are building and becoming more intense within me. And I'm feeling a state of love and ecstasy and connection that I've never felt before. And I'm also recognizing that this is similar to the shift that I had in New York City. This is similar to the shift that I had in my NDE, but it's more intense. And I'm just beyond curious at this point. And so I shift my attention to my left, where there's monuments and there's plaques and there's families that are navigating and moving throughout these plaques and monuments and this park, and they're having their own experiences. And they're right out my window, and yet I can feel them, I can hear them, I can sense them, I know them. There's an incredible knowingness and an incredible tether to these people, as if we're becoming not enmeshed, but as if we're merging. And to my left, I see a Muslim family, and I also see an Indian family. And I see a husband and wife and their daughter. And then with the Indian family, it's a husband, a wife, a couple kids, a grandparent. And they're all navigating and strolling in this kind of slow motion because time, space has changed, and the movement of these people have changed, and the way that they're strolling and the way that they're swaying and moving. And everyone has smiles on their faces. Everyone is just beaming and just illuminated with light and love. And I'm so overwhelmed and overstimulated with these emotions that I'm sobbing, I'm crying. There's tears running down my face, and I don't realize it. I don't even know it. I don't even realize that I'm just drenched in tears of love. And as I'm observing these families, I'm recognizing the amount of pride of being here, how much, I'm gravitating more towards the father of the particular family, and how much gratitude and love he has for his family, and being a caretaker and a provider for his family, and that he has his family here. And they're strolling and reading the historical plaques and the information, and the daughter is holding hands with the mother. And as I'm moving, the two boys that were throwing the football to my right are now running past the families, and they're throwing the football, and they have the greatest smile you've ever seen. You've never seen a smile this radiant. They were all radiating love at the highest level. And still, everything is in slow motion. The movement, the way that the trees are moving, the grass, and my eyes move over to these reeds or like wheatgrass that's moving. And this is the moment where I really start to focus on how slow things are moving. And I'm asking myself, what has happened to time? Why is everything moving in this momentum, like at this momentum, in this pace, in this way? What has happened to time? And I'm following the boys playing, and they're still throwing the ball. And I start to see a thread of light because I'm focused on how illuminated they are. And I'm seeing this thread of light moving between each individual, moving through the trees, moving through even the reeds, the tall grass that is just swaying in this harmonic dance. And I see it moving into me. And as people are moving past my car, walking by as they are in a park, I can not only hear them, I feel them. I know their story. And I feel as though not only that I know them, but I am them. And it's at this point that I start hearing information, and I'm even repeating it back in my mind as if a teacher is imparting information, and I'm repeating it back to make sure that, I'm really getting it. And I hear myself repeating back that not only am I connected, I am these people, that we are all the same, that we are fragments of light, that we are fragments of source, and that the energy and the emotions that are moving through one is moving through another, and that we are all connected, that we are all one. And then the very last piece of information that I got before my energy started to drop is I heard myself say that I am God. God is in me and I am God. I am source. I am source having an experience. I am having this experience, and everyone around me is just fragments of source who have decided to have another experience. And that by connecting empathically to others, I get to almost have a hack of experiencing life through them, which means I get to live multiple lives in one. I get to experience their experience. And it is in this moment, as I'm watching the thread of light move between the trees, between the individuals, between myself and the boys, and I see people going by my window, and I'm feeling their emotions, I'm sensing them, I'm understanding their story, that I start to hear telepathically information, insights that's given to me. And I even hear myself repeating back what I'm hearing as if I'm mirroring or reflecting back so that I don't lose it. And I catch myself repeating back, I understand now. We're all connected. Not only are we connected, they are me, I am them. We are all fragments of source. We are source. And we are all here to have a different experience. And that if I connect with each individual empathically through their emotions, that I can actually experience what they're experiencing as if it's a life hack of living multiple lives in one. And that not only am I source, they are source. We are all source. And as I started to move down vibrationally, the last thing I heard myself say that I was reflecting back is that we are all God. That God is within us, and that we are God, and we are all here to have different experiences. So how can I judge myself? How can I judge another having a different experience? Because if it's not for them to have this experience, I cannot have this experience. So what I have learned from this, and what I feel is almost a responsibility to share pertaining to unity consciousness and the experiences and these downloads, is how absolutely incredible you are. You are source. You are God. Dimensions are within you. You are here for an experience. And that through diminishing criticism, through diminishing our need or delusional need to judge others, that we become closer to our source. We become closer to what it is that we really are and who we really are. Through unity consciousness, we truly get to experience ourselves as a soul. We truly get to tap into our higher selves. We truly get to tap into the radiance and the essence of who we truly are. And everyone has this capability. Everyone has this ability. It is in every one of us. So unity consciousness is not neglecting or denying a person of their individual experience. Unity consciousness is opening oneself to be more open to receive a higher state of consciousness. Unity consciousness isn't an intellectual idea. It is a knowing. It is unity consciousness. When you receive the knowing, comes with emotions. It comes with a higher vibration. It comes with higher frequencies. And it becomes embedded within you. It becomes integrated, an integrated knowing. And unity consciousness is when we allow ourselves to be open to freeing ourselves of limiting beliefs and narratives and judgments and criticisms, and really allowing love, the energy of love, to flow through us to facilitate connections. It is when we can remove the lens of division and divisiveness and limit the control of our ego to really come from a soul's perspective. And this is when we are able to merge with those around us and connect on a soul level. Consciousness is all around us. This is us opening ourselves to a higher state of consciousness. This is us going back to our true selves. So, how has unity consciousness played out in my life? Unity consciousness is what allows me to refrain from judgment of another. It's what allows me to refrain from criticism or hatred because somebody cut me off. It is what allows me to offer somebody the benefit of the doubt in their experience and in their behavior, and even having compassion for their reaction, if their reaction is triggered, or if I'm met with anger or venom or pain that they project onto me. Unity consciousness has allowed me to operate more from a heart space of connecting with even people that I'm just walking by on the sidewalk, even people that I'm never going to shake hands with or make eye contact, but just moving past them, I'm moving past them with love, and I wish them love. Unity consciousness has allowed me to operate in the world with forgiveness, without resentment, without becoming offended or taking something personal or making something about me when it's not. Unity consciousness has allowed me to operate loving myself fully without judgment and criticism. Because if I can't love myself without that judgment and criticism, how can I possibly love you? And everyone outside of me is a mirror of my relationship to self. Unity consciousness has given me the ability to look outside of myself and to be able to focus on the areas that I need to work on within myself based off of my perspective or perception of my reality and of those in my reality.